Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start off with a couple of questions that we received by text and email. Chairman Petrie, why did the House choose not to specifically include a raise for teachers in House Bill 1?
We did specifically include a mechanism for raises. Was there a specific percentage? No. Was there direction to give a certain raise? No. Was there an indication to consider those things strongly? Yes. And was there well sufficient funding to give a raise and meet other priorities in the local district? Yes. So as we stated on the floor, implicit in the entire structure of K through 12, raises are an implicit issue.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the request for personnel to revise the compensation plan?
For 18A state gov employees?
Yes, sir, for state employees.
As we talked about on the floor, as early as July 7, we had invited the Secretary of Personnel as well as the Commissioner of Personnel to come in and talk about the pay scales for 18A employees, state gov. We knew what issues were, and they gave a great presentation explaining about the compaction of the scales and the skewing of the midpoint, which is nowhere close to midpoint, it's at the beginning. You end up with the problem we discussed from that and other things that we discussed on the floor. You end up with someone being hired in, and whoever's training them that may have 4 years of experience, they're basically at the same level of pay. Not fair, not good. So we had asked in that committee with the Secretary as well as the Commissioner, go through that, help us. We've identified the issue. Go through that, give us an analysis, data, and recommendations on how to fix that. And if you'll recall or go back to that committee meeting, at Budget Review Subcommittee meeting, the Secretary and the Commissioner agreed yes to the problems, and yes, we will get you that by September the 1st. That never followed through. Despite, even after September the 1st, that deadline coming and going, we continue to ask in open BR sub-meetings on the record, as well as in A&R proper, we need this, we need this. This is an issue, we've all said it's an issue, executive branch and General Assembly. We need this in order to fix it. So this time, in budget, because we still don't have that recommendation today, January the 20th of the following year, we still don't have that information. It wasn't released in the governor's recommendations for budget. We have nothing. We could not, with those 18A employees, not do something for them. We had started looking at this in 20 on pay raises. Now we're really trying to get the pay scales dealt with. We couldn't just say, well, we don't have the underlying problem dealt with, so we're not going to deal with any raises. We've got 7% inflation this 1 year. That's basically a huge pay cut for a lot of people when you take inflation. So what we want to do is give a reasonable raise first year, require the executive branch to work on those pay scales and come back with a plan. So in the budget, I believe we had said, come back with that plan by July the 7th of this year, or else. It's important enough. If you don't do it, every month it's late, there'll be $2 million slashed from their administrative budget to encourage them to get it done timely. Now, mind you, they promised to have that done on September 1 of last year.
Well, just in terms of, I know the Speaker, especially right after the budget address, there were conversations of you and President Stiver saying you hadn't seen the budget and you weren't able to comment on things. Can you just talk about a little bit about the days after the address when you were able to get some clarity of the governor's recommendations?
Sure, and we had budget review has given us a lot of the differences in those, and we will continue to work through those as this bill, House Bill 1, passes through the process down to the Senate. We will likely have those conversations ongoing with the Senate about some of those things that need to be included, that we would all like to include, either being put in the Senate before it comes back to us, or in all likely event that it will end up in conference committee, an agreement that we will have to put those in the conference committee.
You know, we obviously we saw it with the redistricting bills, but say the governor decides to veto this. Obviously, we know you all have the supermajority and can override it, but would you be open to having more conversations with him to see what things you could get in there to get his approval?
we were always open to those conversations, as the chairman has told you. Given a number of examples of times when we've asked for input. And, I do find it a bit ironic that, when we filed House Bill 1, there were screams and wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth about the fact that we did this without consultation with the governor. And the fact of the matter is, we did do it without consultation with the governor because the executive branch refused to participate. So the fact of the matter is, we are always looking for those exchanges at every opportunity. It makes everything easier. It just makes everything easier. It doesn't necessarily mean that we agree on everything or that we're going to agree on everything. We likely won't. But it just makes things easier if we can have those conversations.
Switching gears to today's override, I would imagine you weren't surprised by the veto and obviously how fast it was to get it overridden. Talk to me about, I know there's been a lawsuit filed. What are you expecting with that process? Do you think you'll be able to hold up your argument?
Obviously, attorneys are looking at that as we speak. Based on the quick read that I've gotten, the quick report that I've gotten, I guess, is that they don't believe that any of the claims have merit, that they've been addressed in previous court rulings. I can't speak as an attorney, having looked at those, so we will let our legal team continue to work through that process, but I look for a speedy resolution to it, and I'm very, very confident that the map will withstand any challenge.
I've got a couple more. Now with the governor's vetoes of redistricting overridden and the lawsuit filed, will the House consider House Bill 323, Representative Miller's proposal to delay the primary and filing deadline?
Obviously we can't anticipate what the courts might do and how quickly they might act. Certainly we don't want to move anything else. We didn't want to move the initial filing deadline when we did, which is why we asked for the governor to call us into special session so we didn't have to come in and change those deadlines that people had marked on their calendars. It was not something that we wanted to do, hoped that we wouldn't have to. Clearly when that didn't happen, we had no choice but to do it. The governor has had this bill for 9 days. Of which obviously they filed suit on the same day that they vetoed. So clearly they've known what they were going to do for the last several days, and to hold the bill intentionally is political theater, and has once again deprived the public of a speedy resolution to this by holding it for another 9 days. But it is our hope not to have to move it again. I hope that we can have this resolved in a few days and put everybody's mind at ease on it.
Thank you. One last question. Is there any truth to the governor's claims that the legislature moved Friday's session day because of COVID?
Not at all. This is one more example of people speaking off the cuff, trying to make points when it's not necessary. That decision was made 2 weeks ago when we decided to meet that first Saturday to balance out the calendar without having to amend the entire calendar all the way through. It was simply a matter of working a Saturday and taking a Friday off. Everybody was well aware of that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.